Another noteworthy result, the mayor of North Kansas City was ousted Tuesday night by the voters. Bitterness over the potential sale of North Kansas City Hospital costs the mayor his job. Bill Bickerstaff finished third in a four-way race, capturing just 14% of the vote. North Kansas City residents are not happy with what's happening there, Sam?
No, not at all. In fact, the incoming mayor ran on a platform of Save Our Hospital. That's what all of his yard signs say. And I think that there is overwhelming concern for not letting North Kansas City Hospital be sold to either a private for-profit corporation or even a huge nonprofit corporation. I think the people are really worried about this and very upset if it would happen.
Now, you're working on a much more extensive piece for KCPT on this that includes the fact that $1.5 million has already been spent in legal fees on both sides of this already, and now state lawmakers have even gotten involved.
Our biggest fear is just losing the hospital altogether. There's been example after example of for-profit hospitals buying smaller hospitals and closing them down. And I could see that happening in Northtown. And then all of a sudden, all of those employees are gone.
A clip from an extended report KCPT will air next week as we track the divisive and bitter dispute over the future of North Kansas City Hospital. You can see that Thursday night at 7 on the local show. But how does this election now affect the status of that hospital, Sam?
It's still pretty squishy. I mean, the mayor, the incoming mayor is completely opposed, as we say, to selling the hospital. But there's still the rest of the city council. They've just added 8 new trustees onto the hospital board. We don't know how they're going to react to this election. We don't know what's going to happen with the legislature. Swearingen, who we just heard from, says his legislation is moving forward. That would essentially put any sale of the hospital to a vote of the people. So, and there's a lawsuit going on that was filed by the hospital because there is a dispute over who actually owns it. The city claims they own the hospital claims it's actually owned by the Board of Trustees. So there's a lot of moving parts, and a new mayor may or may not settle the controversy.